Hey, happy Black Friday. Before you hit that buy button this weekend on all of those amazing deals that I'm sure you found, I want to make sure that you pour into yourself, not just technologically wise or whatever the word is there, but I also want to make sure that you pour into your knowledge of worship leading. And one of the easiest ways you can do that is just to add a book into your cart before you hit purchase on Amazon or wherever you're buying from. So I want to give you 5 worship leading books that you can throw in your cart this Black Friday to level up your worship leading. The first one is this tiny, cute little book. Corporate Worship, it's called. A good name for a book. How the Church Gathers as God's People. This is by Matt Merker. This is just a great understanding of what the role of corporate worship in the church is. I'm reading the back here. But I just recently read this one, and if you've ever wondered, which I hope you've been wondering, what are we supposed to be doing when we gather as a church on Sunday? This is the answer. Right here, you will find the answers in this book, and that question is very important because if we don't know what we're doing on Sunday morning, how are we going to lead the people of our church? We're just going to be guessing. But Matt in this book lays out a biblical understanding of what the corporate worship gathering is supposed to look like, and it's just a great foundation for understanding what your job is on a Sunday morning, because if we are to lead the corporate worship gathering, then we better know what we're supposed to be doing during that gathering. So check this book out, Corporate Worship, How the Church Gathers as God's People. The second book on the list is this book right here. It's called Worship Leaders, We Are Not Rock Stars by Stephen Miller. This is a book that I went through with my worship team probably 7 or 8 years ago. I forget when this book came out, but it is a great worship team devotional. Some of the things that Stephen covers in this. The statement is sort of incendiary, right? We are not rock stars, implying that some worship leaders think that we're rock stars, but while it talks about that, obviously, it's not just pointing out that we aren't rock stars and we need to stop acting like rock stars. It actually answers the question, what are we as worship leaders? And so some of the chapters are, number 1, we are worshipers, we are redeemed and adopted, we are pastors and deacons, we are theologians, we are storytellers, evangelists, artists, and we are Christians. So this is a great book to lead your worship team through, like a little devotional, so that they can understand what their purpose is as a worship leader. Everybody on your team is a worship leader. I talk about that all the time on this channel. And so we better understand what our job is. And obviously our job is not just to be a rock star, but people make that complaint all the time that worship leaders just act like rock stars. In this book, it's actually answered, if we aren't rock stars, what are we? So check out We Are Not Rock Stars, Worship Leaders, We Are Not Rock Stars by Stephen Miller. On to number 3, and this one's a little bit more theological in nature. This one is Worship, the Ultimate Priority by John MacArthur. And this book just really lays the foundation. I think that this is good for you as a worship leader to understand why we do what we do, and to understand it even above this idea of just a Sunday morning worship gathering, because this really looks at like questions like, why should we worship God? And there are some great thoughts in here from John MacArthur about like, why is God worthy of our worship? And honestly, I found so much material to use for speaking transitions during my worship leading. I probably pull out 10 more speaking transitions from this book, things that I could teach my church. He talks about the unchanging God, the omnipotent God. He talks about how God is everywhere. He is holy, all of these things. And then he ends with sort of what all this means for our corporate worship gatherings. And I found that part the most interesting. You got to get through, 150 pages or so before I got to the part that I was expecting all along, but it is there. And I found that the foundational things that John MacArthur put in place before I got to the answer that I wanted, the question that I wanted answered, was actually what I needed most out of this book. So check that out, Worship, the Ultimate Priority by John MacArthur. Number 4 on the list. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't include a Bible on this list. And I don't know if you guys have done this yet, but I finally have upgraded my Bible game. For so long, I bought like the cheapest little Bibles. And of course, it's all the Word of God. But, we drop $1,000 on these iPhones like it's nothing. And then we complain when a Bible's over $30. So I told myself, you know what, I'm going to have this Bible for a long time, and this Bible is more important to me than a phone, and so I'm going to get a decent Bible. This one's not like $300 or anything. It's not like it's goat skin or anything, but this is the ESV single column legacy Bible. You know, for the longest time I bought those little Bibles that were like half this size or something, and I was like, I can still read this as I'm putting it up to my face, but I mean, this is what it looks like on the inside. So easy to read. I love how they separate, oh, it's not on this page, but it's fine. Like they separate like the headings of the sections, which weren't in the original text, by the way. So I like that it's not included in the original text, and you can just read through how the Bible was meant to be read through. Everything that wasn't in the original text is kind of off to the side. So I liked that about this Bible. I also liked that it is a little bit larger print. You know, if you buy one of those small Bibles and then you try to use it whenever you're leading worship, it's pretty much impossible to read on stage. So I found that this is a good size for me as a 29-year-old person who hasn't lost their eyesight yet. I can read this. Maybe you need something a little bit bigger. I'm sure there are Bibles like that out there, but this is a 9-point font. So if you can see the size of that on the page right there, that's a good size for me. And it's just a good nondescript looking Bible. It's normal brown. I don't think that this is real leather, but it is leather adjacent, right? This is from Crossway, by the way. By the way, I will link all of these books down in the description below so you can check them out. But if you're in the market for a new Bible, don't cheap out this time, but buy like a good Bible. This is going to last you for a long time. So check this book out. It is the ESV. They have it in other translations if you want as well. This is the ESV single column legacy Bible. I'll link it down in the description below. Now, speaking of books that you should be thinking about getting, I actually have some worship team devotionals that I've written that are on sale right now. I put together the worship team devotional mega pack. You can check it out down in the description below. It'll be at the top of the description down there, and you can get it for 25% off. So what I've done is I've taken 4 of my favorite worship team devotionals that I have written. I have, of course, We Are All Worship Leaders, an 8-week devotional for worship teams, which a lot of you have checked out already, but some of you might not know that I've written a few more as well, and I've put them in this package. You can get it for 25% off. In this worship team devotional mega pack, we've got What Is. It is a study of worship, worship leaders, and worship leading success. That's the first, I think that's 5 weeks. Then we've got Biblical Worship, which is a study of worship in the Bible. So it's looking at the stories that took place in the Bible where worship happened, and it is teaching your team what worship can look like during our worship services. We've also got No I in Team, which is a study of your role as a worship team member. Remember, these devotionals are written as worship team devotionals. They aren't just random, one-off, like anybody could read these devotionals. They're specifically tailored to a worship team environment. And then finally, I figured the new year was coming up, so I'd put one in about reevaluating your worship ministry. So that worship team devotional will help you and your team reevaluate where you're headed in the coming year and refocus, and also celebrate everything that happened in the past year. So you can start that one when we get to the new year in 2023. So check out the worship team devotional mega pack. It's available for 25% off right now during this holiday weekend. So check that out down in the description below. Now, I wanted to add one to this list. That is what I will be getting whenever I'm looking for Black Friday deals. I've already got this one in my cart, and it is The Worship Pastor, A Call to Ministry for Worship Leaders and Teams by Zach Hicks. This one's already in my cart. I haven't read it yet, but I will be getting it today, and I can't wait to read it. I've watched a lot of videos and presentations from Zach Hicks. He's been on the Church Front YouTube channel of quite a few times now, and he was also in the book Doxology and Theology, which is a collection of a bunch of, I'll link that one down below too, because that's another good option, but he was in Doxology and Theology. It was like a collection of a bunch of different worship leaders writing about worship, and I really liked his chapter in there, so I'm looking forward to reading this whole book from him, so maybe you want to join me with that. Other than that, happy Black Friday shopping. Until I see you in the next video, keep leading worship well.